The Virtual Boy has sold out. Everyone's memeing about it. Everyone's joking about it. It's all just laughs and games. And first of all, I would like to, send my sympathies to those like Nintendine who seriously believed this thing was gonna fail or that it was gonna be offensive to Nintendo owners or that this would not make money. Like, bro, like, this is a product targeted towards core fans. Like, of course it's going to do well, and if you don't want it, you just don't buy it, okay? That's the reality of the industry now, is that you don't have to buy every single Nintendo product that comes out, okay? Plenty of people don't. There are plenty of people who genuinely weren't interested in the Virtual Boy, but for those of us who have spent, like, the past 20 years, like, wanting to play games like Wario Land, Virtual Boy Wario Land, and, Mario Tennis and Mario Clash and stuff like that, having that available on a modern platform is very, very exciting, okay? This is something that I definitely wanted, but genuinely believe that I would never actually get. I was pushing for this idea that, like, they should just re-release these games on the eShop or something, like just release a Virtual Boy collection with, like, remastered visuals and just kind of like, just have them available. But instead they went for like the emulation route, the NSO route, and that's fine. This is what I wanted, but like I never thought I would get it. But what's interesting to me about this situation is kind of the caveat, the thing that people aren't actually talking about. This thing is sold out, okay? How many units is that going to be? Like 1 million, 2 million, 3? Going by like NES mini standards, it's probably about 1 million, okay? But this is going to be a thing that's probably going to be sold like indefinitely. This is something that's going to be like on the Nintendo store. You can just order it whenever. Like, of course they're going to keep the Virtual Boy games available on NSO for the foreseeable future. So this thing is like, it's going to be a product that exists for quite some time, okay? You can still get the NES controllers. You can still get the Super Nintendo controllers. This is basically just their equivalent to that, okay? Okay. So, it is very, very possible that the Virtual Boy is going to outsell the Steam Deck, okay? Because the Steam Deck is not popular, it's not successful, it has no momentum at all, it's overpriced garbage. We are in a situation where it is very, very likely that the Virtual Boy is going to outsell the Steam Deck. Okay, it is very, very possible that the Virtual Boy may go on to outsell quite a few niche video game pieces of hardware. Like it's probably definitely gonna outsell like all the other like handheld gaming PCs and maybe even as much as the PS Vita. Okay, this is something that over time is going to pull in like several million units, and with that being said, like, this is a very good demonstration, I think, of just the inevitability of, like, Nintendo success. Because everyone had this idea going into this generation where, like, it's make it for break it. It was make it or break it for Nintendo, and they broke it. They broke it, man. They announced the Virtual Boy when they should have announced real games. Like, they are completely missing the point where Nintendo is in a position where they can re-release the darkest part of their history, have it sell out, have it do really, really well, and move on from it. And the writing on the wall is clear. And I just made a video about this when it comes to video games, but it really is true to hardware as well. Like, eventually, you will not be able to downplay classic Nintendo hardware like you have been traditionally. Like, I still see people on Twitter trying to gaslight you into thinking the PS1 or the Saturn were better than the N64. Like, there's this mindset in the community that the N64 was bad and that it has no games. And the reality of the situation is that it was very, very, very good. It was so much better than the PS1 and the Saturn in general. But, like, the narrative has been, like, kind of established that, like, well, it only has Nintendo games. Wow, Nintendo, the best developer in the industry. Like, I don't understand why that's a cope. And I suppose that's kind of what we have to address when we talk about, like, when we say things like Switch 2 has to compete with handheld gaming PCs, or it has to compete with mobile games, or like they have to compete with Disney in the movie industry. Like, oh, the third parties aren't going to support Switch 2. Like, that is nothing but a giant cope. Nintendo is not in a position where they're threatened by third parties. They are not in a position where they are threatened by Disney. They are not in a position where they are, like, really threatened by much of anyone other than maybe, like, woke activist shareholders, okay? Like, other than that specific thing, like, Nintendo's, like, pretty set. They're doing very, very well. They're succeeding. They're selling Virtual Boys. Okay, like, so with that being said, like, why exactly are people, like, making conspiracies and making excuses over the success of the Virtual Boy and Final Fantasy VII Remake on Nintendo Switch 2? Because this has been the trend, honestly, is that people have been coming out saying that the Virtual Boy won't do well, that the Switch 2 isn't doing well, that Final Fantasy VII won't do well. Like, there's been all this coping about these things that are very blatantly not true, and I don't see why nobody is really addressing the reality of the situation. Why aren't people acknowledging that Nintendo is doing well, that they are succeeding, that the Steam Deck is not competitive, that the Switch 2, like, is better than Valve, that Valve can't produce hardware, that, like, PlayStation and Xbox are on the way out, that PC and mobile aren't a threat to them. Why exactly are we, like, trying to meme about the Virtual Boy and the N64 in 2026? And the reality is, it's all just a big cope. Okay, people are desperate to push the meme that Nintendo is perpetually failing, when in actuality they have been extraordinarily successful in this industry. And this is a very good example as to why. Like, the fact of the matter is, they were able to re-release the Virtual Boy games, put them out there, have them be successful, have them do this, and this, and, like, really kind of emphasize that, like, Nintendo is just killing it right now. Like, the fact of the matter is, they were able to re-release the Virtual Boy and have it be a success. Like, that's the position Nintendo's in. Like, you wouldn't see, like, a similar success story coming from, like, PlayStation re-releasing, I don't know, like, Gravity Rush, or, like, I don't know, Sly Cooper, or, like, the original Jack and Daxter. Nobody cares about those games. Like, the reality is, the Virtual Boy became such a meme in the community about how Nintendo was so doomed to failure that eventually people started unironically loving it. Like, oh, hail the Virtual Boy! And not only was that a meme, and that came from Tomodachi Life, which is also going to be a major Switch game in April. So, again, all of it's, like, kind of creating this feedback loop of autism. If you successfully downplay the Virtual Boy, Nintendo leans into that and makes fun of it in Tomodachi Life. And then they turn around and sell you the Virtual Boy again, and people slowly start realizing that, like, wow, the Virtual Boy was actually quite a lot better than the PS1 or the Saturn. It's definitely better than the Steam Deck. Again, like, we are in this process where, like, the more people actually experience classic Nintendo games, it's going to be harder and harder to gaslight people into thinking that, like, the company is on the verge of failure, or, like, was struggling in the 90s or whatever. The whole, like, pervasive meme that Nintendo doesn't have RPGs. They introduced Pokemon in the RPG in the 90s. Like, Pokemon immediately was bigger than Final Fantasy, and, like, the gaming industry just kind of bent over backwards to deny it and try to put Pokemon in its own category, even though it is obviously an RPG. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And that is something that we do have to address and talk about when it comes to, like, these brands and these ideas, is that, like, it's, Nintendo just isn't going to fail, okay? Like, it's not really possible at this point, and everyone's just kind of bending over backwards to deny reality that Nintendo has no competition. The Virtual Boy demonstrates that very, very, very well.